No matter where you are in Italy, you're gonna find amazing food. But if I had to pick the one city that just kills it, it's Bologna. Bologna is located in Emilia-Romagna, the best food region in the world. Tortellini, mortadella, prosciutto di Parma, the best balsamic vinegars from Modena, all found in this little region in Italy. But if I had to choose one dish that just blows my mind when I'm there, it's lasagna. And it all starts with a delicious bolognese. First, I'm going to make my signature bolognese. We'll take that and transform it into the best lasagna you have ever had. Hopefully there'll be some leftovers because I'd love to whip up my version of a sloppy joe, a sloppy bow. Don't get me wrong, I love a traditional Sunday sauce with meatballs, sausage, braciole, but it takes all day. It requires a million pots. You're frying, you're this, you're that. It's delicious, but nothing beats a good bolognese. All done in one pot, and once you get past the cutting of the vegetables, which is the most time-consuming part, the work's all done. First, I'm going to trim my carrots and dice them. This is one of the bases of our bolognese, and it's called the soffritto. In Italian cooking, the soffritto is carrots, celery, and red onion, and it's very similar to, like, say, a French mirepoix. When cutting something like a carrot, it rolls. So cut a little nib off the side, and now you have a stable carrot where you can cut your cross slices. No fingers in your bolognese, please. It's a little more than we need, but I would say more is better than less. Let's move on to our celery. Smells really good. I don't like raw celery, but there's something so delicious about cooked celery. See how easy it is to cut these into little sticks just because it's a straight rib. Do I attempt this all at once? Let's not do that to ourselves. You can see how much quicker the celery is. Last but not least, our onions. A lot of people ask me, how do you keep from crying when you are chopping onions? You don't. And honestly, red onions and shallots for that matter kill me. So fingers crossed that I don't look like an idiot in the next 3 minutes. With the Italian soffritto, it's a red onion. I like a red onion. I think it gives great flavor. But you can use a yellow or a white. It's just not as traditional. So far, so good in the tier department. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. Okay, we made quick work of those two. So that's our soffritto. And it's a little heavy-handed, but I am totally okay with that. I love a bolognese loaded with the vegetables. Now my nemesis, a head of garlic. I'm gonna try to do this in one shot today. So I'm using 4 cloves. I'm gonna find the 4 largest cloves at least. Love garlic. Must be packed with garlic flavor. So we'll just thinly slice these cloves of garlic. Set those aside. Last thing we need to do before we actually start cooking is to puree our tomatoes. You can do this in a food processor, you can do this in a blender, but it could be a little messy. So I'm using San Marzano, which are considered the best tomatoes in the world. It needs to be certified because people can just say, hey, these are San Marzano, and they're not. And they're whole peeled, which means the skins have been removed. Submerge it, because if you turn it on towards the top, you're going to be wearing it. Just wiggle it around. Make sure you get all of those tomatoes pureed. Slowly make your way towards the top, and you can see that really cool water feature, which means that this is pretty much completely pureed. And I did not make a mess. So 1 and 2. Spoke too soon. Okay, now that we have our mise en place all done, let's get cooking. You're gonna need a big ass pot for this bolognese. So a pot like this, or even a really nice big Dutch oven works great. Just something that's pretty heavy. We'll add a couple of tablespoons or so of really good extra virgin olive oil. And then we're gonna start building flavors. First, with some pancetta. I love buying it already cubed. It is a little bit difficult to cube because it's so fatty. If you're only able to find it in chunk form, throw it in the freezer for a few minutes. It'll make slicing it that much easier. All the fat from the pancetta is going to render right into this sauce and just add so much depth of flavor. It's like Rice Krispies. Can you hear it popping? I want to get this pancetta nice and crispy. If you don't cook it enough, it's going to be chewy. You don't want chewy. So you can see how nice and crispy our pancetta is at this point. Now to add the next level of flavor to our bolognese, and that is our sofrito. At this point, I'm also going to add a pinch of salt. We want to season this in layers. We're going to cook this for about 10 to 12 minutes. We really want the vegetables to soften and take on the slightest bit of color, which is really going to bring out the natural sugars, but we don't want to over caramelize it as well. This is looking great. Time to add our garlic. We'll let this cook for about a minute, minute and a half, just till it's nice and fragrant, which is almost always immediately. Okay, so we'll give this a second, and let's get our meat. I'm using meatloaf mix. Most supermarkets carry it, makes life pretty easy, but if you can't find it like that, you can just purchase all the components separately. So it's 1 pound of ground beef and a ½ pound each of ground pork and ground veal. So let's get all this meat into our pot. How attractive was that? Don't forget, season in layers. And now, start breaking it up. Be aggressive. This is one of those times where you want really delicate bits of meat, sort of like in a chili. We don't want big lumps here. Carpal tunnel is getting the best of me today, boys and girls. Okay. A good bolognese needs a good wine. I'm using a nice dry red wine for a bolognese. One of the best sounds in the world. Two-thirds of a cup or so. Stir it in our meat, our vegetables, going to start absorbing it immediately. We'll just let this cook for a minute or two to reduce slightly. Once again, that aroma, magic. It's ready for our tomatoes. Get all of that tomato sauce out of the can. Stir that tomato sauce in. Isn't it beautiful already? You can see how liquidy it is right now, but we're gonna reduce most of that off. A couple of last ingredients to throw in there. Some rosemary. I like to cut myself a nice generous sprig. Same with oregano. These are kind of on the smaller side, so I'm gonna just grab a few sprigs. More flavor, more aroma, more deliciousness. And a bay leaf. Throw those in there, stir it in. I'm gonna bring this to a boil, then we'll reduce it to a simmer and let it cook for 2 hours. Our bolognese has been simmering for the last 2 hours, and you can see how much of that liquid has reduced. It's a thing of beauty. Just to add a little bit more flavor, I'm gonna add some nutmeg, about 1/4 teaspoon, freshly grated when possible. And our last ingredient, milk, 2/3 cup. It's also going to change the color of our bolognese, giving it this beautiful mauve? I don't know, is that the right color? It's gonna give us this gorgeous lightened red color. Look how beautiful. Mix it all together and then give it another 30 minutes simmering, stirring every now and then it is time to dig in. This bolognese is delicious on its own, and I honestly can sit here with a spoon and just eat it like that. If it was dinner time, I would cook some pappardelle and serve it with that, but because it's lunchtime, I'm going to make a sloppy bow. All you need is some really good bread. This is brioche roll. It's nice and soft, and I'm looking for something soft because I want all of the sauce to kind of soak into the bread and make it sloppy. Don't be cheap. How beautiful is that? Now, put the lid on, give it a little press. Don't worry about the mess. You can see how the sauce has already found its way into that bun. All that's left is to take a bite. I can eat this for lunch any day of the week. Looks like I have a lot of bolognese left in here. Plenty to make my signature lasagna. I know that lasagna may sound intimidating, but it really just comes down to great sauces. And we've already made our bolognese. All that's left is a bechamel. That's going to be our creamy component. It's velvety, silky smooth, and really makes the dish. Growing up, my mom would make a more Italian-American version with a ton of ricotta cheese, mozzarella cheese, sometimes crumbled meatballs or sauteed ground beef, and that's delicious, don't get me wrong, but I promise you're not gonna miss the cheese in this lasagna. So let's make our bechamel. First thing I'm gonna do is get the milk, 3 3/4 cups of milk, and I'm gonna throw it in the microwave. You can warm it on a stovetop. The reason we wanna warm it is if we add too cold a milk to the base of our bechamel, which is a roux, it's gonna seize and clump. We want a nice velvety sauce. Perfect. Nice and warm, like my heart. Next, I'm going to measure out the flour. This is what's going to thicken our bechamel, and I want to have it ready so that my butter doesn't burn. This is one of those sauces that comes together very quickly, so don't walk away from it. 1 healthy portion of butter. Just a stick. Get that all nice and melty. Bechamel is the secret to many a good mac and cheese. It's also amazing on sandwiches, like a croque monsieur. I always feel like I say that wrong. But it is a very versatile sauce. Okay. Start off on medium-high heat. We don't want our butter to burn. Once it's melted, add all the flour at once and whisk to combine. From this point on, do not put down your whisk. Once it starts to foam like this, it's time to slowly add in our nice warm milk. If you add too much at once, it's going to seize. So be a little patient. It's already starting to look nice and velvety. Whisk really well. Get into the corners of the pot. You don't want to think that you're doing a good job and then come to find out that the edges are all burnt. You have to be a little generous with the salt here. There's nothing giving it any seasoning. We don't want it to be bland. We want it to add more flavor to our lasagna. You can also increase the heat here. We do want to bring this to a boil. A boil is what's going to activate the starches in the flour and give it the proper thickness. Once it starts boiling, 2 minutes of whisking. That's all that's left. That will cook off the starch that's in the flour because you don't want to taste it. And that's all there is to the perfect bechamel. See how it coats my spatula? Perfect. Now for the fun part. We're going to build our lasagna. So here I have just a standard 9x13 casserole dish, and this is what we're going to build our lasagna in. We have both of our sauces ready to go. The only 2 other ingredients that I need, some noodles and some pecorino. Do yourself a favor, save yourself the time. No boiled noodles, my best friend. Building it is really easy and also really fun. So a ladle for my bechamel, a ladle for my bolognese. Start by taking about a cup of our bolognese and putting it on the bottom of our 9x13 casserole. This is just the starter layer. Push it all around evenly. The one thing with the no-boil noodles is it relies on the liquid found in the sauces to cook. So every inch, every millimeter needs to be covered. No naked spots of noodles. So just work that into the corners and along the bottom. Just like that. Doesn't the bolognese look so good? Now it's time for arts and crafts. We want to get as many noodles in this as possible by breaking them. Think of it like building a mosaic. So channel your inner elementary school self. I like to break off the corner piece just so it kind of nestles in, and press it down. And then you just kind of start playing around, carefully breaking off pieces as needed to fit. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but we want to do the best job that we can. The bottom layer, this is fine for. As we build our way up and the sides taper out more, we'll be able to fit more noodles in. Save all your scraps. You never know when you're going to need them. Now we just start adding all of our layers. So more of our delicious bolognese, about 1.5 cups, which happens to be 3 ladlefuls. Here's one of those rosemary stems. Pull that out and then start spreading. Don't forget, cover as much of these noodles as possible. We are going to be adding some of the bechamel on top, so that will fill in any gaps. Work that all around. Our noodles are nice and covered. Time for our first batch of bechamel. About 2/3 of a cup. And give it a nice drizzle. If you haven't done so, now is a good time to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. A nice sprinkling of some pecorino right on top. Little extra flavor, little extra saltiness. And now, repeat. We did it. That takes care of our noodles. Just the last layer of sauces. Swirl that last top layer on. Just think it looks a little bit more fun since it's what you're going to see when you pull it out of the oven. And then just our last final bit of pecorino cheese. All that's left to do is bake this in a 375-degree oven, uncovered for 45 minutes. I can't wait to dig in. Look at this. Oh, doesn't this look amazing? Cannot wait to dig into it. This should serve 8 people. This would be enough for me and my parents. You serve as many people as you want to serve with it. I like the crispy corner pieces, but I would probably make sure that everyone got a little bit if I was serving this at a party or something. Are you ready? I'm nervous. Wow. Not too shabby if I don't say so myself. Look at all of these layers. You can see that creamy bechamel on top, and it's loaded with that bolognese. Takes me straight back to Bologna. Okay, go home now. Mine.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.